The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the respectful kind. The heavy, suffocating kind that pressed against my ears until my thoughts felt too loud. The kind that made every candle flicker feel like an accusation. I stood at the edge of the ceremonial hall, dressed in my plain black uniform, hands folded neatly in front of me the way Mrs. Han had taught me when I started working at the estate. Head down. Eyes lowered. Invisible. That was the rule. Before this story pulls you deeper, if you love forbidden romance, dangerous secrets, and stories where one brave choice changes everything, hit the like button right now so this video can reach more people who love powerful storytelling like you. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this isn't just a story. It's a journey, and what happens next will shock you. May this story stir your courage, sharpen your discernment, and remind you that even the invisible can change destinies. I'd been cleaning the Kim estate for almost a year, sweeping marble floors that cost more than my mother's house back in Oakland, polishing antique tables imported from Seoul, listening to conversations I wasn't supposed to hear, spoken in sharp, clipped Korean I only half understood. I was a maid, a nobody, a shadow drifting through rooms where power lived and breathed and made decisions that shaped lives I'd never touch. Today the house was filled with mourners. The air tasted of smoke and flowers, white chrysanthemums piled so high they looked like snowdrifts against the polished wood floors. Their fragrance was sharp, almost medicinal, mixing with the incense that curled up from brass burners positioned at precise intervals around the room. Everything was exact. Everything was tradition. The mourners moved through the space in expensive black suits and traditional hanbok that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, speaking in low voices about the man lying in the open casket at the center of it all. Kang Dae-hyun. Chairman Kang. The ghost who controlled half the ports on the West Coast without ever appearing in a photograph. They said he died suddenly in his sleep. Heart failure. Clean. Peaceful. I didn't believe that for a second. Men like Kang Dae-hyun didn't die peacefully. I'd cleaned his office enough times to know that. I'd seen the way armed men flanked every doorway. The way phones rang at 3 in the morning with urgent Korean, I couldn't translate but understood in my bones meant blood and territory and consequences. I'd emptied ashtrays filled with cigarettes smoked down to nothing while men made choices that ended lives. And now he lay perfectly still in a casket lined with white silk. His face was calm. Too calm. The kind of serene that looked painted on rather than earned. His navy suit was tailored so precisely it looked like it had been designed for this exact moment. The moment when Kang Dae-hyun would be put on display for people to mourn and fear and remember. The candles reflected off his sharp cheekbones, his closed eyes, the expensive silk lining that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Something about it felt wrong. I'd been on my feet for 7 hours, weaving through clusters of mourners, offering tea and rice wine to hands that took cups without acknowledging my existence. My cheap heels pinched. A blister was forming on my left foot. My fingers ached from gripping the lacquered serving tray, and my back hurt from maintaining the perfect posture Mrs. Han insisted on. "You represent this house when you serve," she'd said in broken English. "You bow. You smile if necessary. You disappear." I was good at disappearing. Being a black woman in a Korean household meant I'd mastered the art of taking up no space, making no sound, leaving no impression. I'd learned which conversations to ignore, which rooms to clean faster than others, how to move through their world without touching it. But something kept pulling my attention back to the casket. The younger men gathered in tight circles near the entrance, their eyes constantly scanning the room with military precision. I recognized that look, the hypervigilance of people who expected violence even at a funeral. Several had bulges beneath their tailored jackets. Guns, I realized with a cold shock. Even here. Even now. An elderly woman approached me, her traditional black hanbok rustling softly. She spoke in rapid Korean, gesturing sharply toward the casket. I caught only fragments: coat, flowers, Sijdian wilting. "I'm sorry, I don't." I started in English. "Coat," she repeated more forcefully, pointing. "Gasio. Go. Fix them." Her tone left no room for argument. I set down my tray and walked toward the casket, my heartbeat suddenly too loud in my ears. The crowd seemed to part around me, and I felt exposed. A black woman in a plain uniform walking through a sea of Korean mourners toward their fallen king. Some eyes followed me with thinly veiled disapproval. Others looked through me as if I didn't exist. Both reactions were familiar. As I approached the elaborate flower arrangements, I began adjusting the wilting white chrysanthemums with trembling hands. This close I could see everything in sharp detail. The lacquered wood casket with brass handles. The white silk lining that caught the candlelight. The man himself lying perfectly composed. Kang Dae-hyun was beautiful in death. The thought came unbidden, followed immediately by shame. But it was true. His face had sharp angles, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, features that looked carved rather than formed. His dark hair was swept back perfectly. His hands were folded over his chest in traditional repose, and even in stillness, there was something powerful about him. Something that whispered of danger and command and absolute control. My fingers brushed against a chrysanthemum, and a petal fell, drifting down to land on the casket's polished edge. I reached to remove it, leaning closer. And that's when I saw it. His throat moved. It was so slight I thought I'd imagined it. A flutter, barely visible, just beneath the skin where his pulse should be. I froze, my hand suspended in midair, staring at his neck with an intensity that made everything else blur. Nothing. No movement. I must have been seeing things. Exhaustion playing tricks on my eyes after hours of being on my feet, navigating a cultural space where I didn't belong, where every moment reminded me I was an outsider. Then there. Again. The smallest tremor. A ripple beneath pale skin. My breath caught. I looked at his chest, watching with the kind of focus that made my vision narrow until nothing existed except him and the impossible thing I thought I was seeing. The faintest rise and fall. So subtle it could have been a trick of the candlelight flickering from the ceremonial candles. But it wasn't. His chest was moving. Breathing. He was alive. The room spun. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling the gasp that wanted to escape. This couldn't be real. They'd examined him, hadn't they? Korean doctors, medical professionals. Someone had to have confirmed his death before this elaborate funeral ceremony began. Someone had to have checked. But looking at him now, at that barely perceptible movement, I knew with absolute certainty that Kang Dae-hyun was not dead. I should have walked away. Should have told myself I was wrong. That grief and exhaustion and cultural confusion were making me see things that weren't there. Should have remembered that I was just the black maid. The outsider who didn't understand Korean customs, who had no right to disrupt this sacred ceremony. Mrs. Han's voice echoed in my head. You disappear. Instead, I did the stupidest, most reckless thing I'd ever done in my 27 years of life. I pressed my fingers against his neck, searching for a pulse. His skin was warm. Not cold. Not lifeless. Warm. And there, beneath my trembling fingertips, I felt it slow, so slow it was almost imperceptible but unmistakable. A heartbeat. He's not dead, I whispered in English, the words falling from my lips before I could stop them. No one heard me. The conversations continued around me. A low buzz of Korean voices discussing family honor and territory, and things I didn't understand, peppered with words I'd picked up working in Koreatown. Gajak family. Chunsong loyalty. Jeontong tradition. I pressed harder, feeling for that pulse again, needing to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. He's not dead, I said louder this time, my voice cutting through the ceremonial quiet. A few heads turned. I saw confusion flash across Korean faces, then dismissal. The crazy black maid, probably upset by the sight of a corpse, probably doesn't even understand what she's disrupting. But I didn't care about their judgment. I could feel his heartbeat getting stronger beneath my fingers, as if my touch was somehow calling him back from wherever he'd been. Yunyuan Jugjian Haseo, I shouted in broken Korean, my voice cracking with urgency and fear and something wild that I couldn't name. He's not dead. The room went deathly silent. Every eye in the ceremonial hall turned to me, to the black woman with her hands on their dead boss, disrupting their sacred funeral rites. I saw shock ripple through the crowd, then anger, then disbelief, and then I saw fear, real visceral fear, flash across several faces. Joryo Gyujesio Butio Curio Nera. Someone growled in Korean. Get her away from him. Suddenly there were hands on my arms pulling me back. Multiple voices shouting in Korean. Words I didn't need translated to understand their fury. Accusations flew like knives. But I fought them, driven by an instinct I didn't understand, reaching for Kang Dae-hyun's hand. Please, you have to listen to me, I pleaded in English, then tried in broken Korean. Union Soreo. He's alive. I can feel his pulse. Mikio, a woman declared in Korean. She's hysterical. This American woman, another voice spat. But I didn't stop fighting because under my fingers, Kang Dae-hyun's pulse was growing stronger. The impossible was becoming real. And then everything changed. Kang Dae-hyun's eyes snapped open. Dark. Intense. Piercing through me like I was the only person in the room. The memorial hall erupted into chaos. Elderly women screamed in Korean about Gwishin, ghosts, scrambling backward in terror. Younger men rushed forward, hands diving into jackets, guns materializing faster than I could process. The shouting was deafening, Korean voices overlapping in panic and fury. Through the pandemonium, the man in the casket moved with terrifying calm. He sat up. Not slowly, not weakly, like someone waking from a deep, unpleasant sleep. His dark eyes scanned the room, calculating, alert, very much alive. Then they locked onto me. I stood frozen, still clutching the edge of the casket, my pulse roaring in my ears. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. Strong. Steady. Miamchwo, he said in Korean. Stop. One word. That was all it took. Silence fell instantly. His gaze never left my face as he switched to English, his voice smooth, controlled, dangerous. You, he said. How did you know? My throat felt tight, but I forced the words out. I saw your chest move. Your throat. I felt your pulse. You were slowing, not gone. A murmur rippled through the room. Someone tried to speak. Kang raised his hand without looking away from me. I was poisoned, he said calmly, as if discussing the weather. Someone wanted me buried alive. Shock rippled through the men surrounding him. Fear followed close behind. He stood fully now, towering over the casket, then turned back to me. His hand still held my wrist, his thumb pressing against my racing pulse. You saved my life. I shook my head. I couldn't let them close it. His lips curved, not into a smile but something close. Something sharp. Then you've made powerful enemies, he said quietly. And one very dangerous ally. His grip tightened slightly. Not painful but absolute. What's your name? Sophia, I whispered. Sophia Martinez. Sophia Martinez. He tested the name in his mouth, his accent turning it into something foreign and familiar all at once. Until I know who tried to bury me alive, you're not leaving this estate. My stomach dropped. I have to go home. I have work. You have enemies now. His dark eyes held mine. The same people who wanted me dead will see you as a witness. A threat. A problem to be eliminated. The room felt like it was closing in. You don't belong in my world, he continued, his voice dropping lower. But you saw what my own people missed. You acted when everyone else merely performed grief without truly seeing. He released my wrist only to cup my face with one hand, forcing me to maintain eye contact. So until I find who wanted me dead, Sophia Martinez, you are under my protection. Whether you want it or not. The lights flickered as generators hummed somewhere deep within the estate. Outside, I heard the first rumble of thunder. I had come to work expecting another long, invisible day. Instead, I had resurrected a king. And as Kang Dae-hyun turned away to issue orders in rapid Korean, orders that would shake an empire I didn't understand, one thought echoed through my mind with terrifying clarity. Saving his life was the beginning, not the end. Later, when they finally let me sit down in a room I'd never cleaned before. Too expensive, too private. I stared at my hands. My fingers still trembled. I pressed them against my thighs to make them stop. I could still feel the moment when I'd first touched him. The moment that changed everything. He wasn't cold. He was warm. They cleared the hall within minutes. I watched from the corner where guards had positioned me, not gently, while doctors arrived with equipment that looked expensive enough to pay off my grandmother's medical bills. The ones that kept me working 3 jobs in a studio apartment where I could hear my neighbors arguing in Korean. I still couldn't fully understand. Dr. Lee spoke to Kang in rapid Korean. No English, not even an attempt. while I stood there feeling watched and protected and threatened all at once. "Anya," a guard said, gesturing to a chair. I understood that word. "Sit." The interrogation started 2 hours later in a library I'd never been allowed to clean. Miho, the man built like a wall, stood across from me, his broken English making his threats feel sharper. "Why you touch him?" I saw his chest moving. "Korean doctors say he dead. Professional doctors." He stepped closer. "But black waitress sees different?" The word stung, but I held his gaze. "I saw what I saw. Maybe you poison him. Maybe you play hero. Make us trust you." His eyes narrowed. "Who sent you?" "Nobody sent me. I work for a catering company. We check." He showed me his phone screen. "Company not exist. Never exist." The floor tilted beneath me. "That's impossible. 3 years of paychecks. Front. Someone's front. Question is, whose?" They kept me there for hours. Different men, same questions. They wanted to know about my background, my grandmother who'd raised me after my parents died, why a black woman was working in Koreatown. "I needed money," I said for the 10th time. "My grandmother had cancer. The bills buried us. After she died, I took every job I could find. That's the whole story." "Convenient," someone muttered. I wanted to scream. Wanted to tell them that nothing about my life was convenient. That I'd watched my grandmother die slowly because we couldn't afford treatments. That I'd worked myself to exhaustion trying to honor her memory by paying off endless debts. But explaining poverty to people with money was pointless. When Kang Dae-hyun appeared in the doorway, the room fell silent. He'd changed into a black silk shirt and tailored pants, no longer in his burial suit, and somehow that made him more frightening. More real. More alive. "Out," he said in Korean. The room emptied in seconds. We were alone. He moved toward me with controlled grace, studying me the way someone might study a puzzle with missing pieces. "Tetrodotoxin," he said finally. "Pufferfish poison. The toxin mimics death. Slows the heart rate and breathing to almost nothing. The dose was calculated perfectly. I would have been under just long enough for the 3-day funeral rites. The implication hit me like ice water. "And then," I whispered, "and then they would have sealed my casket. Buried me according to tradition." His jaw tightened. I would have woken up 6 feet underground, suffocating in the dark. I felt sick. "Someone who knew exactly what they were doing tried to erase me today," he said, moving closer. "And you disrupted their plan. What does that mean for me?" His gaze held mine unblinking. "It means that until I find who wanted me dead, you are under my protection. Whether you want it or not. I need to go home. I have jobs. Bills. You have enemies now." His voice was quiet but absolute. "The same people who wanted me buried alive will see you as a witness. A threat. A problem to be eliminated." The room felt too small suddenly. Too warm. "You don't belong in my world," he continued. "But you saw what my own people missed." He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell expensive cologne mixed with incense smoke. "You acted when everyone else merely performed grief without truly seeing. I just did what anyone would." "No." The word was sharp. "You did what a good person would do. In my world, Sophia, good people are precious. And rare." I wanted to argue. To tell him I wasn't good, just desperate and exhausted and maybe reckless. But something in his eyes stopped me. "Someone wanted me buried alive," he said finally, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. And looking at him, this man who'd been seconds away from being entombed while still breathing, I understood that my life had just become infinitely more complicated, whether I wanted it to or not. Dr. Lee's hands trembled as he held up the vial of blood, speaking rapid Korean to Kong. I sat forgotten in the corner, invisible again. Except this time being invisible felt safer. "Tetrodotoxin," Dr. Lee said in English, his accent thick. "From pufferfish. Very precise dose. Very dangerous knowledge." Kang's expression didn't change, but something in the room shifted. The air felt heavier, like the moment before a storm breaks. "How precise?" Dr. Lee gestured at charts I couldn't read. But I understood the way Miho's hand moved toward his gun. I understood the way every man in that room looked at each other with suspicion sharp enough to cut. Someone calculated this perfectly, Kong said in English, his eyes finding mine. They knew my weight, my metabolism, how long the funeral rites would take. 3 days of viewing, then burial according to tradition. And then, my voice sounded small. I would have woken up in a sealed casket 6 feet underground, suffocating slowly while above ground. My enemies divided my territory. The casual horror of it made my stomach turn. This wasn't random, Miho said, eyes locked on me. This was someone close. Someone who knows our ways. Someone inside, Kong agreed. His gaze sharpened. Or someone brought inside. Every eye in the room turned to me. I don't know anything about poisons, I said quickly. I clean floors. I serve tea. But you were at the funeral. Miho moved closer. You touched him. Because I saw him breathing. Convenient. His voice was ice. You notice what trained doctors miss. You save his life. Become the hero. He leaned close, cigarette smoke on his clothes. Or maybe you were checking to make sure the poison was working. Maybe you panicked when he started waking up too early. That's insane. Is it? Miho showed me his phone. The catering company that hired you 3 years ago? It doesn't exist. Never existed. It was a front company, Sophia. Someone planted you in our world. The words hit like a physical blow. No. I have paychecks, tax records. All fake. Designed to make you look legitimate while someone groomed you for this moment. I didn't know, my voice cracked. I swear I didn't know. Then you're either a very good liar, Kong said quietly, or a pawn who doesn't know she's being played. The room spun. 3 years of working myself to exhaustion, believing I was earning honest money to pay off my grandmother's debts. All of it had been a lie. Someone had been using me, setting me up. To take the fall for murder? To be the black outsider everyone would blame? Who hired you? Miho demanded. Mrs. Park. She ran the catering service. Mrs. Park doesn't exist either. The phone number? Disconnected this morning. The office address? Empty building. I felt like I was drowning. Someone went through a lot of trouble to put you in that funeral hall, Kong said. The question is why? Were you supposed to administer the poison? Confirm the death? Or be the scapegoat when questions were asked? I don't know, I whispered. I don't know anything. Silence stretched between us, heavy with suspicion and danger. Then Kong spoke, his words sharp and final. She stays here. Under guard. 24-hour surveillance. He looked directly at me. Until we know who's behind this, you're not leaving this estate. I'm not a prisoner. You're not safe. His voice dropped. Whoever poisoned me will see you as a loose end now. A witness. A problem. He stepped closer, something flickering in his expression. Not quite sympathy but close. And in my world, Sophia, loose ends don't survive long. The finality of it settled over me like a shroud. I'd saved his life and now I was trapped in his. Whether I survived it was still an open question. The guest room they gave me was bigger than my entire studio apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens I wasn't allowed to walk through alone. Silk sheets. Marble bathroom. Towels so soft they felt wrong against my work-rough hands. It was beautiful. It was a prison. Guards outside my door changed shifts every 6 hours. I heard them speaking low Korean. A constant reminder that I was watched. Protected. Trapped. The first morning, I woke to traditional Korean breakfast laid out by my window. I hadn't heard anyone enter. Invisible servants for the invisible prisoner. I spent 3 days like that. Eating food that appeared like magic. Wearing expensive clothes in my exact size that someone had measured without my knowledge. Staring out windows at a world I couldn't touch. On the 4th day she appeared. You look like you're planning an escape. Her English was flawless, Princeton educated. She stood in my doorway in cream silk and tailored pants. I'm Kong Soo-jin. The sister. Sophia. I know. She settled into the chair across from me. You're famous in our world now. Infamous. The black woman who saved my brother's life and disrupted an entire funeral. I didn't mean to. Disrupt centuries of tradition? Make powerful people look foolish? Force my brother to question everything he was raised to believe. She smiled without warmth. That's what makes you dangerous. I'm not dangerous. You're an outsider who sees what we're trained not to see. Sujin leaned forward. My brother looks at you differently than he's ever looked at anyone, including the woman our family arranged for him to marry. My stomach twisted. There's an arranged marriage? Was. Until you appeared and everything changed. She stood, moved to the window. Be careful. In our world, the people we care about become targets. And you're already an outsider. That makes you even more vulnerable. She left without waiting for a response. That evening, Kang Daehyun appeared at my door. He'd started coming every night after the estate settled into silence. Never staying long. Never touching. Just talking. Tonight he brought soju in 2 glasses. You don't have to drink with me, he said. But I find I talk more honestly with something in my hands. I took the glass. We sat by the window, the garden dark beyond. He poured. We drank in silence. Your sister visited today, I said finally. I know. Sujin worries. She said there was an arranged marriage. His jaw tightened. There was. What happened to it? You did. He looked at me directly. You happened to it. My breath caught. I was 25 when my father died. The business, the family, everything fell to me. The eldest son. Trained from birth to follow tradition without question. He stared into his glass. Everyone wants something from me. Loyalty. Money. Protection. Power. He paused. But you didn't want anything. You just saw someone who needed help and acted. Anyone would have. No. Anyone would have followed orders. Stayed invisible. Let tradition proceed even if it meant burying a man alive. His gaze found mine. You did what was right, not what was expected. That's rare in my world. The air between us felt charged. Dangerous. I don't belong in your world. I know. He leaned forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne. But you make me question everything. Question whether following tradition is the same as honor. Whether power is worth the loneliness. Whether. He stopped himself. Whether what? His eyes held mine. Then he stood, setting down his glass with careful precision. Whether the life I was born into is the life I'm meant to live. He moved to the door, paused. You make me question everything, Sophia. After he left, I sat alone staring at the 2 glasses, one empty, one half full. I'd saved his life at a funeral. Now I was learning I might be changing it entirely. Whether that was salvation or destruction, neither of us knew yet. She arrived on the 7th day like a storm dressed in designer labels. I was in the library when raised voices in Korean made me freeze. A woman's voice, sharp, furious, cutting through the air. The door opened without a knock. She stood impossibly elegant in a tailored suit. Late 20s, beautiful in that polished way that came from generations of breeding. Her eyes found me, and the contempt was a physical blow. So this is the black waitress disrupting centuries of tradition. Her English was perfect, cold. I'm Park Ji-won, Kang Daehyun's fiancé. My stomach dropped. Sujin said the arrangement ended. Arrangements between families don't end because some outsider saves his life. They're contracts. Alliances. Things someone like you couldn't possibly understand. Ji-won. Kang's voice came from the doorway, deadly quiet. She spun, switching to rapid Korean. I caught fragments, Jontong, tradition, Gajak family. She gestured at me, clearly calling me an insult. Kang responded in Korean, then switched to English deliberately. The arrangement ended when I decided it did. What I choose now is mine. Choose. Ji-won's laugh was bitter. You're choosing her over me? Over our family's alliance. Her voice rose. She's a nobody. A black waitress with no connections. Enough. Your family will never accept this. The 5 families will see her as weakness. Choosing her over me. It's making you vulnerable. Then I'm vulnerable. Leave my house. Ji-won turned to me. You think you're special? You're a complication. A problem. She leaned closer. And problems in our world don't survive long. She left in a wave of expensive perfume and fury. Kang stayed in the doorway, jaw tight. I should leave, I said. Before this gets worse. No. She's right. I don't understand your world. You belong where I say you belong. He moved toward me. Do you know what they say? That I'm weak. Forgetting my duty. destroying alliances for an outsider who means nothing. He stopped inches away. But they're wrong about one thing. What? You don't mean nothing. His voice dropped. You mean everything. The air felt electric. This is dangerous. I know. His fingers brushed my cheek. I've spent my entire life doing what was expected, following tradition, building power. His dark eyes held mine. But none of it meant anything until you touched my neck at that funeral and saw what no one else saw. I just did what was right. You saw me, he said. Not the kingpin. Not the arrangement. Just me. A man who needed help. His thumb traced my jawline. Do you know how rare that is? My heart hammered. Dae-hyun. Tell me you don't feel this. His voice was rough. Tell me I'm the only one questioning everything. I can't, I admitted. Something shifted in his expression. Relief. Hunger. Fear. Then stop me if you don't want this. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and restrained and dangerous like everything between us. His hand cupped my face, pulling me closer. And I forgot every reason this was impossible. I forgot I was an outsider. Forgot he was a kingpin. Forgot everything except the way he kissed me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When we broke apart, his forehead pressed against mine. This changes everything, he whispered. I know. The door burst open. Miho stood grim-faced, speaking rapid Korean. I watched all softness drain from Dae-hyun's face, replaced by something cold and deadly. What? I asked. What's happening? He turned to me, and I saw real fear flicker across his features. The 5 families are demanding an emergency meeting. His voice was carefully controlled. They're demanding you. It happened in the hallway outside Kang's office. The corridor was empty, guards at either end, but this middle stretch dark and quiet. Then a hand clamped over my mouth from behind, yanking me into an alcove. Don't scream. Just listen. Her whisper was hot against my ear. Perfect English, no accent. The meeting with the 5 families, it's a trap. They'll demand he hand you over. Offer him a choice, you or war. When he chooses you, they'll use it to paint him as weak. My heart hammered. Who are you? Someone who knows what it's like to be a pawn. To be placed exactly where they needed me. Just like you. Footsteps approached. She shoved me forward hard. I stumbled. When I spun around, she was gone. Sophia. Kang appeared with Miho. What happened? Someone grabbed me. My voice shook. A woman. She said the meeting is a trap. What woman? Miho's hand went to his gun. She was behind me. She said I was placed at the funeral on purpose. That I'm a pawn. Guards searched. Found nothing. In the security room, we watched footage of me in the hallway. Alone. Grabbing at walls. Spinning around at nothing. You see anyone? Miho's tone was heavy with suspicion. She was there. Stress, he said. Fear. Makes people see things. I'm not crazy. Run it back, Kang ordered. Enhanced. Frame by frame zoomed in there. For just a fraction of a second, a shadow moved behind me. Too fast to see clearly. But there. She knows where the cameras are, I said quietly. She knows this house. She's been here before, Kang said. Or she's still here. My stomach dropped. What did she look like? I don't know. She was behind me. But her English was perfect. No accent. I struggled to remember. She said she knows what it's like to be placed where someone needed her. Like you were placed, Miho said, looking at me. Maybe there's another woman, Sujin said from the doorway. Another outsider. Multiple layers. Insurance. Or she's sowing paranoia, Miho countered. Making us distrust everyone. Run facial recognition on every woman who's worked here in 5 years, Kang ordered. Cross-reference with the catering employees. Find anyone matching Sophia's description. Why my description? I asked, though I already knew. Because whoever framed you would want someone who could blend, Sujin said. Same height build. Someone who could wear your uniform and be mistaken for you. The room tilted. You think she was my replacement? I think, Kang said. You were never meant to survive this. Neither version of you. The screen lit up with faces filtered, narrowed. One remained. Korean woman. Mid-20s. same height, same build, wearing my exact uniform from the funeral. She worked here 3 months ago. Food service. Left suddenly. No forwarding information. Find her, Kong ordered. But I was staring at the photo. Not her face. Though that was wrong, subtly altered like she'd had surgery. Her hands. The same hands that had gripped me in that hallway. The same hands that had worn my uniform. She had my face, I whispered. Kong turned to me. Before the surgery. Before whatever they did to change her. I pointed at the screen with a trembling hand. She had my face. They found Jiwon's uncle in a warehouse by the docks. I wasn't supposed to be there. But Sujin had other ideas. You need to see who he really is, she'd said. Before you decide whether you can survive his world. The warehouse was cold, industrial. Men in suits surrounded a man tied to a chair. Blood on his face. Terror in his eyes. Kong stood before him perfectly calm. Tell her, he said in English. Tell Sofia Martinez why you tried to have me buried alive. The uncle spat blood. For tradition. For family honor you're destroying for that black whore. Kong hit him. Once. Precise. The sound echoed off concrete. The plan. Explain it. Tetrodotoxin. Precise dose. You'd appear dead for 3 days. Long enough for burial. He laughed bitterly. Jiwon's idea. Marry her or die trying to avoid her. And the woman who looks like Sofia? Insurance. If Martinez didn't show up, we had a replacement. Someone to take the fall. Someone who'd disappear before anyone looked too close. My blood ran cold. But she showed up. Saved you. Ruined everything. His eyes found mine. Stupid American bitch couldn't just let tradition proceed. The plan was to start a war, Kong said quietly. Blame the Yakuza. Weaken both families while you took control. Someone had to stop you from destroying everything our fathers built. Choosing that outsider over tradition, over Jiwon, over honor. Kong pulled out a gun. I should have looked away. Should have been horrified. Instead, I watched him execute judgment with the same precision he'd used to pour soju in my room. No hesitation. Just consequence. The shot echoed. Silence. Kong turned to me, a question in his eyes. Fear. Would this be too much? I walked forward through the circle of men. Through the blood and violence of his world. I didn't stop until I stood in front of him. Take me home, I said. To him. The estate was under lockdown when we returned. Guards doubled. Every entrance sealed. The 5 families know, Miho said. About the execution. They're calling emergency council. Demanding you answer for breaking protocol. For choosing her over tradition. Let them demand. Kang's hand found mine. I'm done pretending. He turned to face the assembled guards, staff, everyone who'd served his family. In Korean first, then English. Sofia Martinez saved my life when my own people tried to bury me alive. She saw me, not the chairman me. His grip tightened. And I choose her. Over tradition. Over alliances. Over everything. The room went silent. If the 5 families want war over this, we'll give them war. You're insane, someone muttered. Maybe. But I'm done living for dead men's rules. He turned to me. Marry me. My breath caught. What? Marry me, Sophia. Not for tradition or alliance. Because I want you. Because you make me question everything worth questioning. His dark eyes held mine. Because I'd rather burn this world down than lose you. That's not a proposal. That's a declaration of war. I know. I'm asking anyway. I should have said no. Yes, I said instead. The doors burst open. Miho rushed in, face pale. The 5 families just issued a statement. They're declaring you rogue. Unfit to lead. They've frozen all alliances, cut all territory agreements. I don't care. And they've placed a bounty on her. Miho looked at me with pity. $5 million to whoever brings Sofia Martinez in. Alive. The room spun. How long? Kong asked, deadly calm. They're mobilizing now. Every gang, every family, every mercenary in 3 states. Maybe hours. Maybe less. Kong turned to me. I can protect you. But it won't be clean. It won't be safe. It will be war. I know. They're coming for you, Sophia. His forehead pressed against mine. Everyone. And they won't stop until you're dead or I am. Kissed him. Hard. Final. Promise. Then let them come. The war lasted 3 months. 3 months of safe houses and bodyguards. Of sleeping in different beds every night. Of learning to recognize gunfire and the difference between warning shots and kill shots. When it ended, when the last family head signed the treaty, I thought I'd won. I hadn't. The real battle started when Kang's grandmother summoned me. 93 years old, dressed in traditional hanbok, sitting in a room I'd once cleaned. The estate's matriarch. Keeper of family honor. Bow, she said in Korean. I didn't understand. Kang started to translate, but she raised one hand. She knows what I said. Make her bow. Sujin touched my arm. It's tradition. I'm not family, I said. You will be. So bow. Show respect for what you're inheriting. What you don't deserve. I thought about Kang executing his uncle. About choosing me over his empire. About the scars he carried because of me. I bowed. Deep. Traditional. Everything Mrs. Han had never taught me because I was just the help. You think love is enough? The grandmother switched to English. You're black. American. Poor. You understand nothing of our world. Each word was a knife. But you're here. And he won't let you go. So you will learn. You will become appropriate. Or you will make him weak. And weakness in our world is death. She dismissed me with a wave. I spent the next 6 months proving her wrong. Every morning at 5 a.m. Korean lessons with a tutor who corrected every syllable. Every afternoon. Meetings with accountants and territory managers who spoke too fast and expected me to keep up. Every evening. Formal dinners testing me on protocol I'd never learned. They waited for me to fail. I didn't. I learned Korean fluently. Business-level Korean that let me sit in strategy meetings and understand every word they thought I couldn't follow. I studied financial records and found inefficiencies no one questioned because tradition said so. I suggested modern security protocols that actually worked better. And slowly, so slowly things changed. The accountant who'd spoken over me started asking my opinion. The security chief who refused to meet my eyes began briefing me first. The elders who demanded I bow started bowing back. Not because they liked me. Because I'd become necessary. The wedding happened in spring. Traditional Korean ceremony first, me in red hanbok. Kang in formal dress. We bowed to ancestors. Drank ceremonial wine. Followed rituals I'd memorized perfectly. Then we did it again. Simple ceremony. My grandmother's Bible. Vows in English. Maya Angelou poem read by Sujin. Both. Not either or. Both. His grandmother watched from the front row. When it was over, she approached. You've learned well, she said in Korean. Thank you, I replied in the same language. Don't thank me yet. Being his wife means being his equal. Can you do that? Yes. We'll see. 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. The doctor confirmed it in Korean. I understood every word. Called Kang with the news in both languages, watching his face transform with joy and terror. That night, we stood on the balcony overlooking the estate I'd once cleaned. Gardens I could now walk through freely. Are you happy? He asked. I'm terrified. But yes. He pulled me close. I never apologized. For what choosing me cost you. Don't. I chose this. All of it. They still whisper. About the black American who trapped the chairman. Let them whisper. I touched my stomach. I'm not going anywhere. No. He agreed, kissing my forehead. You're not. I looked out at the estate. At guards who now answered to me. At staff who bowed respectfully. At a world I'd entered as an invisible maid and was reshaping as something new. I was no longer invisible. My daughter was born on a Tuesday. 7 pounds 3 ounces. Dark hair like her father. Eyes that would probably stay brown like mine. Kang stared at her like she was a miracle he didn't deserve. She has your fire, he whispered. I can already tell. We named her Elena. After my grandmother. The estate settled into something that felt almost like peace. Almost. The first sign came 3 months later. A package delivered to the estate. No return address. Just a photograph. Me. Except it wasn't me. The woman stood in a coffee shop I'd never been to, wearing clothes I'd never owned. But her face, her height, her build, it was mine. The impersonator, Kong said. She's alive. He turned the photo over. Written on the back, learning to be you is harder than I thought. But I'm getting better. My blood ran cold. She's studying you, Miho said. Tracking your movements. Learning your patterns. Why? I looked at Elena sleeping in my arms. The plan failed. What does she? She wants your life, Sujin said quietly. Not to frame you. To be you. The packages kept coming. Photos of me at the doctor's office. At the park with Elena. At meetings. Places I'd been, conversations I'd had. Moments only someone watching would know about. Each with a message. Your Korean is getting better. Mine too. You favor your left side when you hold her. So do I now. I wonder if they could tell the difference. Kong doubled security. Tripled it. Put guards on Elena's nursery, trackers on my phone. The packages still came. And I started seeing her. In reflections. In crowds. In the corner of my eye. A woman with my face, watching me live the life she'd been trained to steal. She's testing security, Kong said after the 10th package. Finding weaknesses. Why not just attack? Because she wants to slide into your place so smoothly that by the time anyone realizes you're gone, it'll be too late. The night it happened, I was in Elena's nursery, feeding her, singing softly, guards outside, everything normal. Then the lights went out. Every single one. The entire estate went dark. Emergency generators should have kicked in. They didn't. Kong! I screamed, clutching Elena. Footsteps. Shouting. Chaos. The nursery door opened. A figure stood silhouetted. My height. My build. Don't scream, she said. My voice. Identical. The guards won't hear you anyway. She stepped into the room. Even in darkness I could see her smile. My smile. On a face that was mine but wrong. Who are you? You know who I am. She moved closer. I smelled my perfume. Saw my clothes. I've studied you, Sophia. Your grandmother's death. Your struggle. Your need to belong. She tilted her head. We're the same. Both pawns. Both used. Both fighting to survive in a world that doesn't want us. We're nothing alike. Aren't we? We both saved Kong Daehyun. Both learned to navigate his world. Both earned respect through blood and sacrifice. She paused. The only difference is, I'm willing to do what you won't. The lights flickered. When they came back on, she was gone. But on Elena's crib, written in lipstick, my shade, were words that made my heart stop. Hello, Sophia. Or should I say hello, sister? If this story had your heart racing, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video so more people can find stories that speak truth through emotion. Share it with someone who believes that even the invisible can change destinies. And subscribe to the channel for more powerful, unforgettable stories like this one. Drop a comment below and tell me, what moment in this story stayed with you the most? May wisdom guard your steps, courage guide your choices, and may love never find you invisible again.